Hello and welcome to a new month and a new theme here on Erickson Live. This April is going to be all about coaching culture. And the program that cards on the table, we would like you to know about is coaching competencies for leaders. So we thought, what better way to start as we have coaching and leaders in the title of that program, what better way to start than to think about when to coach and when to lead? When should we have a coaching head on and when should we have a leadership on? And what's the difference? And where does managing come into this? And what is leadership in the first place? So lots of things to talk about with two wonderful guests. So stay tuned for all of that. So, welcome again to everybody who's tuning in to April, which is our Coaching Culture Month. Um, so, as you are joining us, I would really love to know, where are you joining us from? We're still waiting for people to kind of catch on that the stream is happening. We're noticing more and more people coming in on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So, hello, hello, welcome. There's enough space for everybody. As you're coming in, let us know, where are you joining us from? And in your organization, either the one that you're working at or the one that you're working for. So maybe you're a coach or a consultant somewhere, or maybe you're working in a corporation or something like that. Um, where is that organization at when it comes to coaching culture, in your estimation? However you want to define coaching culture, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being just beginning to build a coaching culture, and 10 being fully and completely having established a coaching culture, where would you say your organization is at? So we already have Edita saying hello. Hi, Edita. We're having Elsie from France, and Ty from Cypress, Texas. That is a beautiful city name, actually. Dilek is dialing in from Vienna, also very beautiful city. So welcome everybody. Armenia editor, just starting the journey in coaching, going towards the ACC. Congratulations! It's an exciting journey, and yeah, we're right there with you. Thank you for joining us. So, as we're waiting for more people to chime in, I'm going to introduce the first of our guests. And the first lady that we have on this little panel of ours is Nancy Boyer. Nancy is a professional certified coach with the ICF, with the International Coach Federation. She helped develop Erickson's Coaching Competencies for Leaders course, the one I was talking about before. So she is a co-author, if you will. She has a professional background in human resources and has held several leadership roles herself. And she owns her own coaching practice. Nancy, welcome to your first time on the stream. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you, Fabian. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. So, Nancy, I read a little bit about you, but tell us more. So, what is your background as it relates to this whole topic of coaching competencies for leaders, of coaching culture? What, I mean, to be blunt, what qualifies you to talk about it, and also, why is it important for you to talk about it? Why did you want to
Mhm.
participate today?
Oh, my passion is high around this topic. I'm going to start with that if that's okay, Fabian. Why is it important is because each of you make a difference in one person's life or many. Then they, model what they see as a leader or as a coach with others and make a difference in many people's life. It's a trickle effect. And my qualifications come from a background. I have an MBA in global management, and I always enjoyed culture and people. And then on top of that, I worked for a university for 18 years in leadership development, as well as a community college. Many other industries hire me as a coach and facilitator. So I hear a lot. And that's why I let Erickson know we have a wonderful art and science of coaching program. Why can't we bring some of that into coaching competencies for leaders so that we can really work with and partner with leaders that come with tons of experience to really create and have a safe place to explore leadership and coaching together to really make a difference in those lives.
Making a difference, having this ripple effect, throwing that beautiful little pebble in the pond and just seeing it spread out. And yeah, got it. Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. All right, so let's move on over introducing our other guest. Her name is Sarah Thomas. She is also a professional certified coach with the ICF. She especially coaches senior and aspiring leaders. And Sarah sharpened her own leadership chops as CEO of the Professional Association of Resident Physicians of Alberta and as a member of the executive team of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta. Sarah is also an active board member and volunteer with a diverse set of organizations. Sarah, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabian. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. And so, same question goes to you. So, what is your background? I mean, you coach leaders, right? Tell us a little more about that, and why is this topic important to you? What is it about having or establishing a coaching culture that is interesting or fun to talk about for you?
Yeah, well, I just noticed that senior leaders definitely, when you're at the top, there is a reduced pool of who you can open up with, of who you can appear vulnerable with. I think that sort of gets into some of our assumptions about who and what a leader should be. And, that's often this assumption that they should have all the answers, know all the answers. That's often the assumption that leaders will hold for themselves. And so, what I appreciate about that group in particular is being the sounding board in a space where they may not feel there are honest sounding boards to bounce ideas off of, to express insecurities with, vulnerabilities with. So that's certainly something I appreciate about that cohort, is being able to serve in that way for them. Um, why it's important, I'll echo and bounce off of Nancy's to make a difference. One of the things that I've noticed about a coach approach or a coach mindset, which is, I think, much broader than just coaching, is that it improves the quality of our problem solving. It improves the quality of our solution finding. It improves the quality of critical thinking. And so that's one of the things that I've appreciated most about learning the skill set that goes along with coaching and just noticing where else I can apply it.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, wonderful. Um, so everybody, you heard what the two ladies are have to offer. That sounds weird, but you heard what their specialty is, what their passion for this topic is. What's coming up for you around that? What questions might you have for these specialists that we have here today? So please keep the questions coming because we want to make these streams for you. We want you to walk away with whatever you came looking for. I know that you're also here to kind of hear what we have to say, but hey, the more we know what you're interested in, the better we can entertain you and the better we can give you what you want and what you need. So keep the questions coming. I might not be able to get to them right away, so I already have a question from Edita that I'm going to come to a little bit later. Um, but in the meantime, yeah, so let us know what you want to know, and also let us know how far does your organization or an organization that you're working with already have a coaching culture established, and what might you want to share around that? So let's get some best practices and a little bit of a mastermind theme going on. So Sarah, as you're talking about leaders and kind of this, yeah, loneliness, I'm going to call it, the kind of this lonely at the top kind of feeling, and who can I really open up with, and don't I have to seem infallible, and don't I have to have all the answers and that sort of thing. You remind me of a study that I read recently in Germany, where they asked employees and team members of corporations, and I don't remember the exact number, but only a fraction of people, when asked whether they want to take leadership roles, said yes. Most people don't want to be in a leadership position. And I'm guessing that what you're describing might be part of that, that it feels like it's just a lot of pressure and it's a crazy world out there. So why would I be a leader, right? I don't want to take all this responsibility. And so coming off of that, what would you say is the relationship between coaching and leadership? What does coaching have to offer potentially to leaders?
Um, so coaching has to offer the opportunity for data mining, I think. When you're asking really good questions, and you leave space for people to fill in, and you've also set the context where they are not afraid to say things, you get better data. So coaching has a coach approach to leadership, offers better data.
Okay.
That's
Um,
one. I mean, that's one thing.
yeah, and
Yeah.
could you elaborate on that even a little bit more so people aren't afraid to say something? You can kind of pick up more on what they're wanting to do. Help us understand even more.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of different tacks. I mean, one of the things that I would acknowledge of why someone might choose not to be in a leadership role, especially when we think about how blame shows up in organizational culture, and this idea of consequences for a misstep or a wrong step or a different step. And the closer you get to senior leadership, the closer you get to the top, the more expansive those consequences could be, or the magnitude of those consequences become much bigger. And so when you think about how organizations deal with mistakes, that certainly could get in the way of aspiring towards leadership. So I think that's one piece. Um, the other thing that I would invite is the relationship between leadership and this skill of coaching. So there's data mining. There's also being able to tap and integrate the information that people are coming with. So when you're getting, again, more data, you're allowing people to move those pieces around, see that data, understand how the information another person brings integrates with and builds off of information they might hold. So that's another piece that coaching approach or coaching skill sets in the leadership position can also contribute.
Yeah, and you take me back to my time as a consultant, where I was working with couple of different public service organizations, and it was exactly the problem that you were describing, or that's in there, is that people saw their own knowledge as their power source, right? There's like, if I share my knowledge, if I share what I know, I will become superfluous, and they will just, I don't know, they couldn't get fired. It was public service, so it wasn't even about getting fired. It was just about, I'll become irrelevant. I will lose influence. Um,
Yeah.
and you're
It
talking
can
about,
also be
yeah,
seen as a competitive advantage as well. Like
yeah,
that's the knowledge that I hold is my competitive
right,
advantage. Yeah.
yeah, and so there is an element of maybe not breaking that up, because that sounds too violent for coaching, but kind of reorienting that, right? Like kind of putting that on its head and seeing what might be the positive sum game here. How can we um, get to a solution that benefits all of us, and how can we reach across silos and across gaps and across teams and all of that. So that's what I'm taking from what you're saying. That is definitely something that, um, working as a whole in a company, and thus being more able to actually respond to external stimuli, rather than having all these infights and like, no, but this is marketing's job, no, this is, I don't know, it's the sales jobs or whatever. Having all this infight, all this friction, where the efficiency gets lost. And so that's just what's coming up for me as you're talking about that. So thank you for kicking us off there. And Nancy, over to you. Angie, in response to what I was sharing around that study in Germany, she
Mhm.
she explains it to herself by saying they don't want the extra stress. Those people that don't want to become leader, that they just don't want the extra stress, right? And she's saying having coaching around this could potentially open up a better avenue for them to want to become a leader in their organization. And so I'm just curious what you would like to contribute or like to add in this, around this. Like, how can coaching empower people to get a vision and then to want to share the vision and to step up to this leadership position?
Yeah, so I would ask the question, what do you want from leadership? What will it do for you? What will it do for others? What are the benefits of putting in the hard work? What are the benefits of being in charge of team performance instead of just your individual performance? And so I think one has to evaluate that, maybe with a coach is a great way to do that, but also to really think about what comes out of it when. So I'll just tell a quick story, if I may, Fabian. I look back at my leadership days and I had many different roles in leadership and I grew in each of them as I progressed in leadership based on feedback I was given. And so it's a personal growth and development as well, but it's also what do you take away that you could apply and help someone else to develop and share and help performance, because it does come down to organizational goals, organizational vision, organizational performance as well. And so you still have that individual performance, you have that team performance, and then does it share up to the organizational performance as well? So to me, the stress is worth it. The stress is real, but how do you react to stress, and what could you do to make a positive outcome of that could contribute to that team, to that organization, to really make it worth the effort? And how might a coach or a coach approach, knowing that people have the resources inside them to be successful, really show up to really help someone expand and grow, and then help your team and organization expand and grow as well.
Yeah, wonderful. And I would add to that not all stress is bad, right? There is
Mm-hmm.
eustress, EU stress, that's the good type of stress, and then there's distress, which is the bad stress that just stresses you out. Um, but maybe there is a way to, like you said, what do you want from leadership? Maybe there's a way to have fun with this, and maybe there's a way to really get into flow, and that brings with itself a certain amount of stress, but that's kind of what we're built for in a way, the positive type of it. Yeah,
Can
Mm-hmm.
I build off that?
absolutely.
Yeah, well, I just noticed too, when you step into leadership with more of a coach-like mindset, you can also put down this idea or this narrative that you have to have all the answers. And part of, I think, the stress is informed by this expectation that you have to have the answers. And so coaching sort of allows this opportunity to put some of that down and unload or take off some of that stress and focus more on the good stress,
Mhm.
the less chronic stress, or the putting down some of that distress, because you can reevaluate just what are the appropriate expectations to have when I'm leaning more and more on the people that work around me, for me, with me.
Yeah, and that goes to kind of an evolution as a leader, right? There's several models of this, but in the beginning, kind of the the very basic form of a leader or manager, and we'll get into that distinction in a second, is the guy that just keeps all the plates spinning and that wants to do everything himself, or the lady who wants to do everything herself, um, and just runs and keeps the plate spinning. That's on the stick, and just frantically showing up everywhere and nowhere, trying to make it all work. And once you evolve and you get into more of a coaching mindset, it becomes more of this conductor that is just letting people do what they're there for, and is not trying to play all the instruments themselves all at once, but is just kind of, yeah, directing traffic in a way, and letting people shine. Does it
Yeah,
resonate with
Fabian,
what
if
you're
I
saying?
could add to that.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Nancy.
Sarah, if you don't mind, I'll just say I had a colleague come to me in my earlier days of leadership, and I'm very grateful to this day that he did. He said to me, why aren't you letting us help you? I was in charge of recruiting and training then for the university as it was growing dramatically. And I said, let me help, let you help me. I would love for you to help me. And but you're right, I was trying to keep all the plates going. And as soon as he said that and brought it to my awareness, and I could open up and let people, use their skills and empower them to be a part of the team, I was relieved as well. I didn't have to do it all. I didn't have to know it all. And with that, it was really, really powerful. What happened from there, we got better ideas, more innovation, more things done, of course, because more minds, right? But it is such a lesson learned for me, and I'm so grateful for that feedback. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. So sometimes as leaders, we should be open to that feedback, just like we give feedback.
Yeah. Sarah, did you want to add something?
Well, it introduced this mindset that I've heard. I mean, I come from a regulatory background, and the focus on risk mitigation, which is such a narrowing. And the flip of risk mitigation is opportunity creation. And so, it's this idea of, I use this metaphor often. I do a lot of skiing and biking, but it's focusing on the path that you want to take. So if I'm on my bike, one form of risk mitigation is um, is dialing in or focusing in on the opportunity I actually want to take. What's the path I want to take, instead of looking at what's the tree stump I want to avoid? Because in actuality, if you're focusing on the stump, you'll hit it. That's how our eyes and minds work, and it's our minds work like that metaphorically as well. If we focus on the thing we're wanting to avoid, we end up steering towards it or steering near it. And so it's letting go of this idea that we need to focus on the thing that we don't want to have happen is the way we mitigate risk. That's one way to mitigate risk, and there are other more solution focused ways to mitigate risk. And I tend to draw attention to what's the language that you're using. What happens when you reframe the thing you're trying to avoid into the thing that you want? It's one of the things that I have been so excited about the Ericksonian way of coaching, is that it is very focused on solution finding and solution oriented framing, which I think is working with the way that our mind works. So I just really appreciate about Erickson how informed it is, from psychology and from the way that our minds are actually operating, and it's working with them instead of fighting against the current of how our mind can sometimes get caught up in negativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually something that my driving school instructor taught me. And I'll never forget that. I don't even know if he was aware of how profound this piece of wisdom was that he was sharing with me. But they were telling us, if you ever drive in your car and you drive over a stretch of ice and your car loses traction and you're kind of desperately trying to get it back, don't look at the tree that you're heading towards. Look at the space next to the tree that you want to get to, because your body will subconsciously do everything in its power to get there, even if you're not consciously aware of it. Um, and that is so powerful. And I just look back
It
on
is.
this piece of information that I got all these years ago. I was like, yes, thank you. And
Yeah,
it's just,
it
yeah.
is. The other interesting piece is the faster you're going, the farther ahead you need to look. So if I'm on, really aggressive terrain, really steep terrain, I have to cast my mind my sight even further ahead. And it becomes even more important that I'm looking at where I want to go.
Exponentially so. If we kind of look at the formula of how speed works and that sort of, and reaction time and that sort of thing, um, exponentially. It's not just, oh, well, if I go twice as fast, I have to watch twice as far. No, no, no. You're going to have to look, I don't know, 4 times as far, or 8 times as far. I don't know. I'm not great at physics.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so all of that, I think, is tying in very nicely with a comment that Angie made. And she also has a question. So I'd love to read that to you guys and see who wants to take it and who wants to say something about that. So Angie says, I'm a current leader in my organization, and I'm also a coach. So wonderful to have you. This is one of the main things that I hear. I think the one about the stress, that people don't want to have to extra stress. As a coach, that's the question now. As a coach, what's the best way for me to bring more awareness of the positive aspects of being a great leader? I find we have to coach our peers or people we see who want to achieve leadership within their company because the companies don't have this type of coaching built within the coaching structure, within the company structure.
I can take it if you want, Sarah, unless you want to go first.
You go ahead, Nancy.
All right. So really great question, first of all. Thank you for asking it. And what I would add to that is asking the question, back to your organization, to your leaders, any chance you get, to those that are potential leaders, in the pipeline, if you will. Just ask the question back to them. And then another thing that I would suggest is I do this, and I really enjoy this training that I'm asked to do. It's called Is Leadership for You? And I just think it's brilliant on this organizational's part is we do a 4-hour training on what is leadership and what is management, what might a typical day look if there's such a thing, right? And so there's this conversation that happens in this training, so people are really thinking about it ahead of time. It's not just top performers going into positions and then needing a different skill set possibly. It's this awareness that happens, and nobody needs to make a decision there. No promises are made regarding positions and if they'll get them, but having a conversation or even seeing that vision ahead so that you can truly prepare for it. And I believe you're interviewing every day, not just in an interview. And so it gives them a chance to think about that, so that this approach, this common language, this positive aspect of leadership / coaching and the dynamic of both can be considered ahead of time instead of just putting somebody in a role and then having them get up to speed rather quickly because they have to. It's the mindset is prepared, and then the skills are developed or the competence is developed as we go. But I think that's really important to at least have that conversation, possibly put a training in there. It's this awareness and this attitude as well as this knowledge of managers just aren't in meetings all day. There's much more to it than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that, just noticing you on your own leadership journey, and this idea of modeling what it is you want to see. And so I would just invite you to take the time. What is it that you love about the leadership opportunity, and then live what you love about it. And when I think about living what you love about it, it's about taking the time, and this is, I always think about celebration, and I notice when people talk about celebration, they often respond to it as though it's indulgent. And I would just invite a reframe of that. What we celebrate is what we integrate. And when you think about within your teams, what you celebrate with them is what you're integrating with them and systematizing even. And so when you start to notice what you love about leadership and then make space to be in that moment with your people in a spirit of celebration or acknowledgement, I think that starts to give permission, or it's like wayfinding. You're shining the light on what leadership can be. And I mean, I will confess, I have a very collaborative, when I think about what does leadership mean to me, I think about it as collaboration. I think about it as empowerment. And so, having a really clear sense of what you believe leadership is and celebrating what you love about it. And it will, that will shine through.
Yeah, can I add, Fabian, if I could just go off that a little bit more?
Yeah, so just
What I want to say about
summarizing,
yeah, go ahead.
modeling what you love about leadership, just putting that out there, embodying that, just giving that example to the people around you where they will pick up on that, mirror neurons and so on, and celebrating what you want to see more of. So Nashrun said, what we focus on grows, or you could also say, well, we get more of what we pay attention to. So celebrating something, putting the attention of the behavior that you want to encourage, that you want to integrate, and systematize. So just kind of, yeah, repeating that a little bit just to have it really clear and emphasize it. Go ahead, Nancy.
And I just want to draw attention or invite you to notice the difference you can make in someone's day. We don't know what's going on in their life. And a lot of people look up to their leaders or their managers, whatever it's called in your organization. So just keep that in mind, even when you're having a bad day. What difference can you make when you're modeling? What difference can you make in someone's life, just in the way that your tone of voice or something in the way you react to them or in the way they're heard? When I was in HR, the thing I heard most is, I just wanted to be heard. I didn't even need somebody to fix it. So as you're modeling, what do you want to model and how will that impact someone each day?
Yeah, that's so interesting, Nancy. I was out for a walk the other day with someone who worked for me in a former life, and we were having a conversation around leadership, and I was asking her some questions, and her response was that she had imprinted on my leadership style. And that was such an you know, it was such an interesting word to use. And so, just this, when she thinks about leaders, she thinks about it comparatively to what she experienced when we were working together.
Yeah.
And this
Just to
idea of you're
explain
constantly,
that maybe to non-native speakers. So when you
yes, please.
imprint, it's when, for example, little ducklings, tiny ducks that just hatched from their eggs, the first entity, the first being that they see, they imprint on them and they see that as their mother and they follow them around, right? So they're completely focused on them. That's the benchmark. That is the what everything else gets compared to. So that's what we talk about when we talk about imprinting.
And just noticing the potential that has, and you'll never know. You'll never know how and what people have imprinted from you in that position as of leader. So there just is this massive, massive potential.
There is, and kind of the cautionary side of it is, I'm dad to a wonderful little guy who is a little more than a year old. Children pick up on incongruencies, and they're smart and they're perceptive, and so are your employees and your team members, and they will pick up on incongruencies. So it's really important to have your vision and to
Yeah.
kind of stick to it.
Well, this is the other thing that inconsistency, being an inconsistent leader will do. It will steep your people in stress. So they now have to constantly predict what they're going to get. I think like consistency sounds so boring, but it is, I think, such a key component of really impactful leadership.
Yeah. So one comment that I've been holding on to as you guys were having this wonderful back and forth is, there's all these Gallup studies on what, like, you always hear like 80% of Americans are actively disengaged and looking for a new job and that sort of thing. Um, and they emphasize over and over and over again, not just because it's a nice theory, but because they have tens of millions of data points, um, that the biggest influence in job satisfaction by far, like what is it, the determination of like 60% or even more, is the manager. So Angie, my answer to your question would be yes. In a lot of corporations or in a lot of organizations, it's not inherent, this coaching culture, or this promoting this mindset of I'm going to be the next leader in a couple of years is not built in there. But that leads us then to, what can we influence? Well, maybe we can't influence the company structure, but we know from all this research that we have a huge influence over our team, over the people that we engage with. And Nancy and Sarah gave you lots of examples on how that might work in practice. So you have much more influence than you might be aware of. And we were talking about the ripple effect in the beginning, and that is real. If you influence 8 people in a day and they each influence 8 more people, and then to a lesser degree those then each influence 8 more people, you have 8 times 64, what is that? You have like 300 people that you influence in a given day, um, and that's a lot, and you're not aware of it often. But when you take to heart what Nancy and what Sarah are saying, um, you have much more impact than you might give yourself credit for. So use it for the good of the people around you. That would be my point around that. Yeah. Um, all right.
I'd love to feed off that.
Yes, please.
And I mean, it's the one skill I think to rule them all, and that's to learn how to listen. And you know, it makes a lot of sense once you've gone through coach training, but also this awareness of learn how to set yourself aside when you listen. Learn how to put your needs on the back burner when you listen. And that's much easier said than done. And I think in the context of of a global pandemic, that becomes so much more difficult to do because, there's a collective, we've all been kind of moved into a hyper-stressed, hyper-vigilant situation, which pushes us physiologically to focus on our own needs, and there's a reason for that. So this idea of really mindful listening is, I think, it's just the one skill. If you're going to start anywhere, start there.
Yeah, and if I could feed off that, Sarah, personally and professionally, start there. Start there in everything you do. Listen at a different level, more than the words. Look at the body language, the tone of voice, really hear beyond the words what people are saying or not saying. And that will really make a difference in your conversations. One of our learners that came out of the coaching competencies for leaders said at the end of the class, he said, I'm amazed at how different I am at the dinner table, not just at work, and it's true. It becomes who you are and how you respond. And it's about the person, not about you. And I think we all have to learn that. We all have to refresh on that. And we can continue to learn to listen, but it is the biggest skill. Listening and asking open-ended questions will really make a difference for you both personally and professionally.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually a really good point to lead us over to. Yeah, because I notice when we have people in CCL, coaching competencies for leaders, and we have people in the art and science of coaching, you get those comments all the time, right? I had somebody yesterday telling me I was talking to my nephew, and that kid never talks. And I just actually asked him a couple of questions and listened, and he wouldn't shut up. It's like I talked more with him in this one weekend than in his 8 years of existence before that, and it's so nice, right? So it's these little things where you think, yes, this stuff is working, this stuff is really powerful. So that leads me into a lot of people, once they're taking the course and during the course and right after the course, they use every opportunity to flex their coaching muscle and to ninja coach people, coaching people without them being aware that they're being coached. And I'm curious now, when is that the right thing to do? And when would we actually say, well, look, coaching is wonderful, but it's not the tool in every single situation, right? There's a time and a place for coaching, and there's a time and a place for having a more directive leadership approach. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. Whoever wants
Sarah,
to
you
start
want to
first.
start that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the major components of a leader is decision making. And so I think, when you're using coaching to sidestep a decision that you need to be making is a pretty good indicator, or to be aware of. Because it's not a get out of jail free card, and one of the most significant components of leadership is decision making, direction setting. The other piece, it's less about coaching and it's more about coach-like. So you're setting the culture in the behaviors you show up with. And it's about, I think that's a lot about being in the practice of creating space for other people's ideas to be included, creating space for not jumping into solutions or not jumping into the answer, but creating you're really, as a leader, you're a chief culture setter. And it's being in the practice of leaning back and knowing the difference of when to move into decision and when to lean back and to create space for information and data to come in. And so it's less about, I do think leadership, it's less about coaching and it's more about being coach-like, but knowing when. And you only build that skill by jumping into the pool and
Yeah.
trying it on.
That's a really an important distinction that you're making there between coaching, kind of pure and simple, um, and having this coach infused leadership approach, right? And that is also the distinction in a nutshell, I think. Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, between the course Coaching Competencies for Leaders on the one hand and the Art and Science of Coaching on the one hand. The Art and Science of Coaching goes all into how do you coach, how do you have all this involved processes, and goes into NLP and into how the brain works and all those kind of things, and really digs deep into you becoming an expert in coaching. Whereas CCL is designed and tailor made for busy executives and leaders who want to get the tools but don't need a lot of the background. You don't need to really know why it's working, you just need to know that it's working. And you don't need to set an hour or half an hour aside for a special for a coaching session, but you want in your interactions, you want to show up a little more coach like Sarah was saying just now. So I think that's just good for people to know as we're talking about this.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, well said, Fabian. And what I would add to that is coaching competencies for leaders is about effective coaching conversations in a business setting, whatever that may look like. And you could have coaching skills or you don't have to. If you have leadership skills, whether you have direct reports or not, that's okay. And then, like you said, the art and science of coaching is full coaching sessions. And I think it's really important to know that it's a very safe place, especially now Sarah and I are teaching a class together in coaching competencies for leaders where people can come and share what are you going through with this pandemic, what's going on as you step into that leadership role that you want to discuss. And the conversations we're having now, it's always been dynamic in CCL, they're even more dynamic. There's trust built with the group, and we're going deep in what are they experiencing, what might others share. It's not, myself as the facilitator giving the answers, it's asking the group for input, it's bringing your experience to it, and from there, you're heard, and you can make a decision what you want to go do about your situation. But it is a nice place to come with a leadership and coach approach, to really have a space where you can share. You don't have to share names or anything like that. And I'm telling you, these conversations are so dynamic. I have trouble sleeping after them. They're that good.
Okay,
And
in the good
so
sense.
Sarah knows. Yeah, yeah. Sarah knows exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they come with the ideas and they workshop them together. And it's, they use the coaching skills, they use these ideas to workshop as a way to practice the skills that we're bringing and that we're showcasing, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if I might use my own terminology, there's even a bit of a mastermind element to the course.
Definitely.
And you're practicing what you're preaching. You're having a coach infused facilitation style. You're not just telling people, but sometimes you are telling people when you're introducing concepts, but a lot of the time you're also flipping the classroom and letting people workshop things and figure out solutions and be creative with each other. And that's basically what you're teaching. And you're not just teaching it, you're also living it right there.
And one thing, Fabian, that I'll add is we teach an Erickson exercise of leadership pipeline, where you're really recognizing where is this team member in comparison to the leader, and what approach or what style should you be adjusting accordingly based on that goal or task that they're experiencing. Should you be coaching? Should you be directing? Should you be continuing to provide feedback, or maybe they're at the point where you can empower. And so that's super important to recognize with all the people you have on your team, whatever number that is, and maybe we'll ask you that in the chat. Uh, what, who are you showing up as based on who's in front of you and what do they need? Really important.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question because you earlier said,
Ah,
well, something like where leaders are in the pipeline, if you will. I was like, aha, he's thinking about the leadership pipeline. So before we get into that, Angie is actually saying, I'd like to take this course. So if somebody feels inspired, where should they reach out to kind of get more
Yeah.
information?
You can go to erickson.edu, short for education, and in there under organizations would be coaching competencies for leaders. You could either go there or you could write myself, Nancy at erickson.edu. I'd be happy to help you, or my colleague Jasper would be able to help you. Like I said, or like Fabian said, I'm one of the creators and facilitators. Fabian and Sarah are both very much part of the facilitation team as well. And so any of us can help you. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We're happy to support you.
Yeah, and sorry for this, but here we are. We even have a special offer right now, just in case you're interested. So that's on screen right now, 15% off um, for coaching completes for leaders and plus half of the art and science of mindfulness if you find that useful. So yeah, check it out, erickson.edu. So back to regular scheduled programming. So I was saving one comment. As we were talking about, well, people don't really want to become leaders and that sort of thing. Tay also said some reasons to fear/avoid leadership include previous early trauma, fear of criticism, rejection. And I think there's something really profound in there that your leadership journey doesn't start when you get promoted to be a leader. Your leadership journey starts the moment you enter the company. And as Angel was saying, a lot of companies aren't set up to recognize and to support these people that are going to be leaders. Hopefully, if you do your job right, if you don't want to waste all these investments in the manpower or like in the human resources that you're hiring. Um, and that's to me where the leadership pipeline comes in, right? Because it's recognizing that there are different stages that an employee goes through on the way to developing their own leadership potential and their own leadership styles, and they need different interventions at each point along the line. And that's something that we go into in the course. And I'm kind of skirting around it. I want to kind of explain it and preempt it and spoil the fun in the course. But Nancy, so what might be something beyond that we can share without kind of yeah just doing the session here, doing the lesson here.
Yeah, I really think it's recognizing each person and where they're at that moment, because it's going to change. We can't think that, oh, this person's motivated by this or this person needs me to be directive. It's what do they need now and how can I as a leader support them with coaching going all the way through it. But also there is a time, right, for direction as well. And recognizing, because one thing I see that's really hard for me to observe when I'm consulting or coaching in different organizations is sometimes we think people don't need training anymore. And I don't believe that to be the case. So there is a time that you would shift your style based on what they need in front of you while empowering them so that they can, also grow, that we're not hand holding, but we're meeting them where they're at. And I think that's really important in coaching or in leadership. And I love your point, Fabian and Sarah, about there is a time to be a leader in the role that you're in, and people recognize that. And I'll tell you, I've recruited for many years, and one of the biggest questions I would ask people is, who have you mentored, or who have you, it depends what the role is, coach, leader, and what performance came of that you can own, or partially own. So I think that's important, that you're adjusting your style as a leader and meeting them wherever they're at. And
Yeah,
and we would expand more in the program. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
yeah, and
Sarah.
if I could add to that, like I really think that leadership is a relational sport. And even when you think about, it's your leadership journey starts as you enter in a company, but that's really flexing it in an organizational construct. It starts even before then. And it is such a relational sport, and you start to get curious, how do I relate with myself? How do I relate with others? When do I experience that as smooth? When do I experience that as bumpy? What about this is in within my realm of influence? And even when we think about leadership as one of the components or outcomes of really strong leadership is the ability to influence. And we all know people who influence, with a title. We all know people who use the title to and I wouldn't call it influence. You know, a lot of people use their title to insist, or they use their title to mandate.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, mhm. And so leadership is such a relational sport. And it starts with how you relate with yourself. And you know, the question came up with, you know, inviting in this concept. I can't remember the exact words that were used, but you know, like that it starts with that early trauma and what triggers you into an anxious response. Or so much of this is in the realm of how we understand ourselves emotionally, and that can be a very challenging place to start. So I fully acknowledge that it's hard work, but I just really want to return to this idea of leadership being very relational. It's interpersonal.
It is.
Mm.
And something that's coming up for me, and I usually don't like these distinctions, but there is something, maybe, let me know what you think. Maybe it's very simplistic, but that, you know, leadership used to be, think of the 80s, Gordon Gekko, that sort of thing, used to be a very macho thing, right? It used to be very testosterone driven, right? Like elbow mentality and greed is good and all of that. And now we're coming up with emotions and vulnerability and authenticity and consistency in these sort of things. And to some people, it has a very female touch to them. And I don't know if I agree, because it gets results. And at the end of the day, that's really what's important, right? And how you get there. It's about the vision that you want to achieve, and the world has just gotten infinitely more complex. And so the simplistic answers are no longer good enough, and it has to become more complex. And if that is something where we open ourselves up, then I think that's the macho thing to do, you know, to put yourself out there. But then again, I don't know. I'm yeah.
Yeah, I would
What do you
just
think?
invite Fabian. Sometimes we let the concept of gender get in the way of an embodied quality. And qualities certainly have a leaning, a socialized leaning towards a gender label. Um, and what if we started to move beyond that? And because sometimes that leads us, I mean, it opens up this idea that we can't embody the quality, or that we need to embody a certain quality. And when that's released, we can start to get curious about what's the quality that might support me here. And how can I build a stronger portfolio of qualities that can help me relate to people? And so I just invite that as an uncaging of some labels that may know, that still are quite rigidly show up, and will probably for a long, long time to come. But maybe we can start to soften and melt some of those binds that we have.
And it's artificial and it's learned, right? So my favorite
It's
example
learned.
is that up until the 50s, pink was the natural color for boys, and blue was the natural, obvious color for girls, because red symbolizes the blood spilled on the battlefield. So red is for men, and therefore the weaker red, the pink, is for boys until the 50s. And then it switched just because some fashion designers decided that they would mess with it, right? And so it's something that we can decide to uncage, like you say. So
Mhm,
yeah, we can totally do it.
mhm.
So as we're coming up, we're already kind of 7 minutes ahead from our landing. Um, Everybody, what might be a final question that you have? What haven't we addressed yet that's really important to you? What can we kind of cap this conversation off with, so that you can not go home happy? You're already home, presumably, but that you can go on with your day in a way that you really feel like you got something valuable out of this. And in the meantime, I'll add that Alina is who is a wonderful student in one of my courses, by the way, says empathy is universal, and leading with empathy, be it with your teams and customers, produces amazing results. So I think advocating for in the same vein. And then Angie also added a little bit earlier. Um, in my company, they always expect the employee to tell them they want to be a manager or leader and put themselves out there. But I feel there should be an aspect of observation from the company management to recognize and approach their people. So to give them a hand, maybe, you give them a leg up. Not everyone is aware that they could be a leader manager, but we may recognize the potential they have by their skills and how they showed in their work ethic. So an appeal to people to maybe be aware of the leadership pipeline and put it into practice, and just helping people become aware of the journey that they're on, not just looking at where am I at and what are my quarterly goals and what is my development plan for the year, but what are you here for? What do you want to reach in the end? What's your legacy in this company? Questions like that hardly get asked, right?
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge that comment on empathy and to notice that it's very, very difficult to give to someone else what you don't give to yourself. And the beauty of that is the practice that will drive that kind of growth in leadership is available all the time with you. It's right there and accessible. You don't have to go anywhere to get it or to do it or to put it in practice. And it's very difficult to give to someone else what you are not able to give to yourself.
Yeah, Sarah, and adding to what Fabian said, I've done a lot of exit interviews in my life, and I always heard the same thing, and that is, where is my value? Why am I doing what I do? And so the more you can explain the why and share the value, or ask the person, to come up with their value, the more they'll be interested in their current role and that future possibility as well within the organization instead of leaving. And then you pay more in training and hiring and everything that goes along with that. There's cost involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So before we wrap up, Edita gave us a nice question: how to attract executives? And it's a bit formulated a little succinctly. So let's see if we wrap our heads around what she wants to know. So how to attract executives, top managers to take coaching services. So can having a coaching culture, can having prevalent coaching services being offered, can that be a competitive advantage in attracting top level executives? Is how I would probably translate that.
Do you want to go first, Sarah? You want me to go?
Just a little clarity on the question is that how do we attract executives who coach, or coaching as a tool to attracting top executives? I'm just a little confused on the question.
So while we wait for Editor to clarify, Nancy, do you want to go ahead with what you're interpreting? Because we have this 20-second delay, so we won't know for a little while.
Sure. So my interpretation is that if one organization was to provide coaching services for executives, would that bring more executives to their pool of hires at an executive level? And if so, I would say it depends on the person, but in most cases, yes, if that's something that motivates them and they see value for, or that you can show them value of. And I'll tell you, on our website, one of my favorite things is one of the leaders at Google didn't think he needed a coach, but he actually found that he did. And everyone does, and so if there's the why behind it.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Eric Schmidt, everybody needs a coach, is the title of the video. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And it's true. And so what's the value to the individual to put that time in? And then they'll see for themselves. You could always offer to them, would you like a coaching experience? So you could see what solution-focused coaching is. And if so, is this something you would find value that you would find in your package?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think that's valuable. And in the meantime, we got clarification from Edita. So she's talking from the perspective of as a coach, actually. So she said earlier she wants to focus on executive coaching. So her question is, I want to have executives as clients. So how to attract, or how to I guess have those potential clients see the value in coaching. And she was also asking if you want to go there, if you have something towards that, um, what might be some courses she can take as she wants to focus in executive coaching? What is some offer that she could take advantage of?
Yeah, so I mean, I can take coaching is very, very, very well recognized in some of the more major companies. I mean, most, and I mean, correct me, but I think most, Fortune 500 companies are at the executive suite. They work with coaches all the time.
She lives in
So just
Armenia.
acknowledging,
Just for background, she's from Armenia. So I
right?
don't know how many
Yeah.
Armenian Fortune 500 companies there are. So
Okay.
she might be starting from a little bit of a coaching culture in the global sense
Yeah.
that is a little less informed.
Yeah, so I think maybe it's leading less with the label of coach and leading more with a coaching conversations. So as you engage with even different levels of leadership, just imagine all of those little snippets. 15-minute coffee is all. That's all ways to show up using your coaching tools. Asking the question, what do you want more of? Why is it important to you? How might you get it? So it's really about modeling coaching. And, even, I mean, that's what I've noticed in terms of my client uptake. If I can show up and give them an experience, they more often than not go away seeing the real value in that experience.
And she
Yeah, and
says,
real quick, I'll
okay,
just
coaching
because I
conversation
oh
sounds
go
great.
ahead.
Yeah. So she
Okay,
responded
good.
and said that
Okay.
coaching conversations make sense. And Edita, just for you to know, we've also had cohorts from Georgia. Yeah, so the country that's very close by to Armenia. And here in Africa, we've done CCL, and there are participants from all over the world. So um, we might sound a little focused on North America, but actually this stuff works all over the
Yeah.
world. It's just what I wanted to add. Nancy.
Mhm. And just real quick, and your clients can be from all over the world. The best question I was asked by my coach, it was the business program that I took after my art and science and coaching with Erickson. My coach said to me, "Where will you get your clients?" My initial response was Phoenix, Arizona, because that's where I live. And she said, "Why?" And that's all she had to ask me. And now I'm coaching people all over the world. So your market is everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, your
exactly.
market is
Yeah,
everywhere.
you're not limited. Yeah,
Mhm.
especially now,
Mhm.
especially with things being
Mhm.
online, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. Just really quickly, Sarah and Nancy, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing all your insight. What might be, as we head out the door, what might be one thing you want to leave people with that we haven't maybe, or it could be underlining something we've already mentioned, or it could be bringing in something that we haven't mentioned that you really want people to know?
Sarah?
I think for me, and I think it piggybacks off of the last question that we had, and it's this idea of instead of doing coaching, move it to the concept of the being, and really think about it on the level of being what coaching is, and what would that look like?
So infuse what you already do, such as consulting or facilitating or something like that. Infuse that with a coach approach and help people see the benefit of coaching that way when they ask, hey, wow, you have a great style. What is that? And then I say, well, actually, let me tell you about coaching, for example, rather than saying, well, let me educate you on coaching before you even have a foot in the door, um, and send them running for the hills.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Sarah and Nancy.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here and Fabian for having us. What a big deal this is, and really is meaningful to both Sarah and myself. And I would just leave you with really think of the impact that you have on people every day, and how that impact can make a difference in their lives and all those they touch. And that's all I want to leave you with. Thank you for coming. I know you're busy. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a big one. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I think this was a great start to our Coaching Culture Month. We'll have more to come. Among other things, we'll also be talking again with Dr. Marilyn Atkinson around big picture thinking. So, that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, Remember that we have this special offer. I kind of have to mention it. That we have this special offer for coaching competencies for leaders. If this sounded interesting, if you want to learn more about when to coach and when to lead and how to have these coaching conversations that are just shy of having a full coaching session, but how you can integrate, infuse your leadership, consulting, training style, whatever you have with coaching, then that is the course for you. Erickson.edu is where you can find more information. Nancy will be happy to chat with you and see if it's right for you. We never want to push something on you. We really want to make sure that it fits you. Um, so, yeah, with that, have a wonderful rest of the week, everybody. And see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.